This book, The Developing Human, written by Professor Kieth Moore, has been translated into 8 languages. It is considered a scientific reference work and was chosen by a special committee in the United States as the best book, authored by one person. We met with the author of this book and presented to him many Quranic verses and prophetic hadith which deal with his specialization in embryology. Professor Moore was convinced by our evidence, so we asked him, "You mentioned in your book that in the Middle Ages there was no advancement in the science of embryology and that only very little was known at that time. At the same time, the Quran was being revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, and he was guiding people according to what Allah revealed to him. There is found in the Quran very detailed description of the creation of man and of the different stages of human development. You are a world-renowned scientist, so why do you not uphold justice and mention these truths in your book?" He replied, "You have the evidence and not I. So why do you not present it to us?" He provided him with the facts. He proved to be a great scholar. In the 3rd edition of his book, he did make some additions. This edition enjoys worldwide distribution and is read by many of the world's foremost scientists. They read the additions of Professor Moore in his book about the Middle Ages that growth of science was slow during the medieval period, and a few high points of embryological investigation undertaken during this age are known to us. It is cited in the Quran, the holy book of the Muslim, that human beings are produced from a mixture of secretions, from the male and the female. Several references are made to the creation of a human being from a sperm drop, and it is also suggested that the resulting organism settles in the woman like a seed 6 days after its beginning. The human blastocyst begins to implant about 6 days after fertilization. The Quran also states that the sperm drop develops into a clot of congealed blood. Reference is also made to the leech-like appearance of the embryo. The embryo shown in figure 5.3a is not unlike a leech or bloodsucker in appearance. The embryo is also said to resemble a chewed piece of substance. The developing embryo was considered to become human at 40 to 42 days, and to no longer resemble an animal embryo at this stage. The human embryo begins to acquire human characteristics at this stage, as shown in figure 5.14c. The Quran also states that the embryo develops within 3 veils of darkness. This probably refers to 1, the maternal anterior abdominal wall, 2, the uterine wall, and 3, the amniochorionic membranes. Space does not permit discussion of several other interesting references to human prenatal development that appear in the Quran. This is what Dr. Moore has written in his book, and which is now being distributed throughout the world. Scientific knowledge has made it incumbent upon Professor Moore to mention this in his book. he has concluded that the modern classification of embryonic development stages, which is adopted throughout the world, is not easy or comprehensible. It does not contribute to the understanding of the embryonic stages development because those stages are identified on a numerical basis. That is, stage 1, stage 2, 3, 4, 5. The divisions that have been revealed in the Quran do not depend on a numerical system. Rather, they are based on the distinct forms. The Quran identifies the stages as follows. نطفة, a drop, علقة, a leech, مضغة, a tube-like structure, عظام, bones, كسل العظام باللحم, clothing the bones with flesh, and al-nash'a, the formation of a distinct fetus. Professor Moore has recognized that these Quranic divisions are actually based on the different phases of prenatal development. He has noted that these divisions provide scientific descriptions which are comprehensible and practical. In one of the conferences he attended, Professor Moore stated,
"The embryo develops in the mother's womb or uterus, protected by 3 veils or layers, as shown in this next slide. A represents the anterior abdominal wall. B, the uterine wall. And C, the amniochorionic membrane. Because the staging of human embryos is complex, owing to the continuous process of change during development, it is proposed that a new system of classification could be developed using the terms mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. The proposed system is simple, comprehensive, and conforms with present embryological knowledge." Intensive studies of the Quran and Hadith in the last 4 years have revealed a system for classifying human embryos that is amazing since it was recorded in the 7th century AD. Although Aristotle, the founder of the science of embryology, realized that chick embryos developed in stages from his studies of hen's eggs in the 4th century BC, he did not give any details about these stages. As far as it is known from the history of embryology, little was known about the staging and classification of human embryos until the 20th century. For this reason, the descriptions of the human embryo in the Quran cannot be based on scientific knowledge in the 7th century. The only reasonable conclusion is that these descriptions were revealed to Muhammad from God. He could not have known such details because he was an illiterate man with absolutely no scientific training.
We told Dr. Moore, what you have said is true, but it is far less than the truth and evidence we have presented to you from the Quran and the Sunnah, and which are related to the science of embryology. So why not do justice and completely bring to light all the Quranic verses and ahadith which deal with your field of specialization? He said that he has inserted the appropriate references at the appropriate places in a specialized scientific book. However, he would invite us to make some Islamic additions citing all the relevant Quranic verses and the prophetic ahadith and highlighting the various miraculous aspects to be incorporated at appropriate places in the book. This was done. And consequently, Professor Moore wrote an introduction to these Islamic additions, and the result was this book, which Dr. Moore had suggested, including the Islamic additions as you see here before you. On each page, which includes facts about the science of embryology, we have cited the Quranic verses and prophetic hadith which prove the inimitability of the Quran and Sunnah.